Hi, I'm Renee Fisher with VACO, and welcome to Business Mondays at the Urban Farmhouse. I have here with me Art Washburn with Alpha Omega Wealth Management. Thank you so much for being here today.
Glad to be here.
Appreciate it. So this series, I guess, we're talking about holding hands as we approach the fiscal cliff. That can sound pretty deep, but we have Art here to tell us a little bit more about it from the investment side. So Art, tell me a little bit about Alpha Omega and your role and responsibility there.
Sure. Alpha Omega we're a registered investment advisory firm that manages portfolios for individuals, families, endowments, foundations, and we also do institutional investment consulting for corporate retirement plans. I'm one of the co-principals there and involved in almost all the research we do in selecting the stocks and bonds for our clients.
Okay, well that's a great lead-in. So the investment market, how does that tie into, some people would say, a volatile economy right now with the higher taxes, the rising debt? How does the investment markets play into that?
Well, I think let's look back a little bit, then we can look forward. So we look at 2012. And the results for last year were a lot better than what people probably thought they were or how they felt. Okay. And that's just because of the volatility, the uncertainty that surrounded most of last year. And what happened though is that companies were able to put up better earnings. They were very conscientious about how they spent their cash. And so that turned out to be pretty good for investors who were able to put their money to work. Right. Now the interesting thing though is that there's a lot of people who aren't in the market. Typically pension funds have about half their money invested in stocks, and right now they're only at about 35%. Okay. So as we look into this year, what does that mean? Right. Well, it means that a lot of those pension funds and endowments are underinvested in stocks, and with interest rates being so low, they're going to have to put more money in stocks to achieve the long-term investment returns they need to meet their pension obligations.
When you said 35%, they're at about 35%. What did you mean by that?
Meaning 35% of the assets they have in their pension pools are in stocks. Okay. And they're normally about 50 to 60% of their assets are in stocks.
That's where I wasn't sure. So, and was that because people went the safer route, or companies went the safer route?
Over time, they put more money in bonds because that's perceived as a safer asset class because of volatility. But now the Fed has artificially held interest rates down for so long and so low that there's no return in fixed income. So that's really caused companies and pension funds to look at different asset classes to try to achieve some yield.
Right. Okay, so that leads us to the Federal Reserve. Tell us about their role and how that plays an impact on the decision making of firms like yourself as well as just your individual investment.
I would say that what they've chosen to do with their role is to add liquidity to the market. Okay. And meaning that they've made money very cheap by keeping interest rates low, which has allowed more firms the opportunity to borrow at low rates. Right. Our concern is that over time, that will cause a lot of inflation in the market, and it will definitely devalue the dollar. And that can have some unintended consequences long term. What it also does is artificially lower the amount of interest the U.S. government pays on its debt. Right. And so over time, that at some point,
exactly. Somebody's got to pay.
Somebody's got to pay, and that becomes an issue.
Right. Okay.
So go back to your question earlier about 2013 and looking at debt and debt levels. States and municipalities have seen their debt levels go higher, just like the federal government. They had depended upon subsidies coming from the federal level down to the state to meet budget obligations, and without those, it's been a very big challenge for some of the state and local governments.
Right. I guess they're in the middle of it right now as we're filming, right?
They are.
All the decision making that they have to do. Anywhere from the meals tax, that's a big debate going on right now.
Those tolls.
To the tolls, exactly. And
right.
Most of the taxpayers just aren't used to having those kind of imposed things that are going to be happening now.
Right. There's going to be much more of an impact on all of us as individuals over the next 2 or 3 years.
So with that, what would you recommend a person doing that's looking at how how to make investments and what should be their decisions going forward in the next 2 to 3 years?
Well, I think people have to do some kind of self-assessment of what risk really means to them and volatility, because we're going to continue to see volatility in the U.S. market.
Well, quickly, 2012 you said was a really good year, for the most part,
Right.
in relative terms,
Right.
right? So was that with people that had stocks originally and held them through that year, or was that a lot of changes going on, people making other buying decisions within the year?
Well, I think a lot of it was people who were in the market and held on throughout the year, because the
Okay.
fourth quarter really wasn't very good
Right.
in 2012. Fourth quarter was kind of flat.
Okay.
So if you were in from the beginning and stayed through till the end, you probably did okay.
Not that
last
frantic caller that
Right.
said, please,
Right. Not
you
the
know,
folks
get me
who-
out of all of this right now.
Right. Not
The
folks
world
who
is
go
coming
on-
to an end.
Who go online and trade back
Exactly.
and forth every day. That
Well,
really
it's a scary thing.
wasn't.
It's a scary thing.
It wasn't that kind of a market last year.
Right, right. Well, so Art, tell me something funny about Art Washburn.
One thing is I really like to sing, and that's probably
Really?
my most favorite thing to do.
Nice,
And
nice.
so I sing in a praise band at the church on Sundays.
I'm gonna put Art on the spot here. Can you say Amazing Grace in an acapella?
You really want me to do
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound.
Very nice. Look at you, on the spot and everything, right here at Business Mondays at the Urban Farmhouse. I want to thank you, Art, for being here today. It was a pleasure. I appreciate it. And signing off, Renee Fisher with VACO.